Okay, perfect. Well, welcome today. I'm so excited to share this training called Burnout to Balance. This is something that's near and dear to my heart because I will be the first one to raise my hand and said, I have learned this the hard way. Unfortunately, have pushed myself beyond the balance part and have ended up in a broken down wagon and having to have rebuilt myself. But part of what I want to share with you today is some tools that you can implement and use in your life and your business so you can avoid the pitfalls of what burnout actually brings. So today we are now living in a burnout culture. Recently, there was a survey by Deloitte. I can never say this right. Deloitte about a global outlook. Then they interviewed over 5,000 women about their experiences with burnout, and the unprecedentedly, women especially because of all the juggling we've had to do since 2020, the levels of burnout have reached unprecedented, alarmingly high levels. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard this, as this last year has become the year of the great resignation, where women are eventually saying, listen, I can't do this no more. This isn't serving me anymore. This isn't what I signed up for. Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I cannot do it anymore. And of course, it's affecting businesses. We have a problem with hiring, keeping staff on, productivity. Everything has gone down. So part of what we want to do is just address this and think about what are the tools we need to apply in order for us to work through this situation we have in our society. So let me encourage you that before you try to escape and book a one-way ticket to Mexico and burn the ships, let me introduce you to some tools and techniques that I hope that you will find useful that you can apply today to your life and business. So today's training is especially designed for you if you've perhaps started a business to make a big impact, but somehow ended up on the verge of burnout and breakdown. Maybe you desire to become more successful without sacrificing your peace, your relationships, health, and happiness. And you're destined for greatness, but you're feeling overwhelmed and maybe need some help putting those pieces together. And if you're running on the roundabout of life and the stress is consuming you, but you need to find balance and peace, this is definitely for you. Now, here is the thing. As a mindset trainer, I love to be able to look at the aspects of what is the flip side of this. Once we are able to create a managed mind and be in control of ourselves, our thoughts, our emotions, our life, and our business, what are the benefits? Well, really, once we approach and we apply these techniques, you're able to overcome any challenge. You can create calm in any situation. You can revel in loving relationships without the self-criticism. You can align with your purpose. You can honor your health, grow your business, and make more money. And my favorite is to tap into super thinking, because when you can become a super thinker and think in 3D, you're able to see any challenge, any opportunity as a way of applying your abilities and the full power and abilities and capabilities you have yet to tap into. So going to cover as much as I can in the next hour. And we know that mindset is a big topic. So at the end of it, I will share with you how I could offer you more help. And hopefully you'll be able to get as much value out of even today to be able to apply this. So if that sounds good, I'm glad to be here. So today's agenda, there'll be 3 topics that we'll go over. The first one is how to recognize the signs of burnout, because awareness is key. The second one we'll go over are the mindset shifts that you can move from surviving to thriving. And my third tip is how to slow down to speed up. And there is some method to the madness. So stick with me as I would go through this. But before we go into the content, I wanted to share a little bit of my backstory so you know exactly where I'm coming from and how this all came about. So as Linda graciously said, she read things about me, and I really appreciate that. So basically where I am today, I'm a trained mindset metacog trainer and performance coach. I'm also a Amen University brain health coach. I'm a total neuroscience geek. I love to know how the brain works. I'm also a John Maxwell certified disc trainer and speaker and consultant. I'm also a Christian author and motivational speaker. I've actually been an entrepreneur since I was 95 and have run 4 different businesses, mostly in the branding, marketing, and creative photography space. I've also been a podcaster since 2013. I'm actually writing book number 9. And I was a award-winning photographer for 13, running a studio, a volume studio with staff members. Love to do TV, broadcast, and media. And as you can tell, I'm not from around here. My accent is originally from South Africa, where I was born and raised. And my childhood sweetheart and I, my husband, we have been married 26 years, have lived in South Africa, the UK, and the USA. And I am a mom of three kids, two young adults and a preteen. So definitely, like many of you, I'm sure you are juggling many plates and have a lot of things on your to-do list. And we are constantly shifting from one task to another. But even though we might look at that and say, wow, that's impressive, I can tell you the truth is for years I spent chasing mirages. And what I mean is that I was constantly searching for approval, accolades, and achievements, constantly searching for more education, more information and knowledge. I was always trying to keep everyone happy at my own expense. I was worried about impressing people by doing more things. Anyone else admit to being a control freak and perfectionist? Yes, that would be me. I never took the time to be intentional about where I was actually headed, and I ignored the signs before it was too late. And I ended up celebrating my 40th birthday in burnout, breakdown, and feeling totally broken. Now, really what the straw that broke the camel's back, or the tipping point, was around about 2015. I'd lost my mother-in-law to cancer, and she was a strong woman of faith. So the fact that, you expect someone to get better and they don't, it was a real shock. At the same time, I was dealing with a teenager, and one of my children was in a mental health crisis, self-inflicting harm and all that kind of stuff that needed, intervention. I was dealing with a business failure and a launch that didn't go well and ended up with thousands of dollars of debt. And I was in complete denial. I kept thinking if I just kept going, kept pushing, kept going harder, working longer, doing all the things, burning my wheels, I thought I would get there faster. But eventually what happened is I faced physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual burnout. The physical grief of losing my mother-in-law, I had never experienced that before. When, like, your body actually feels pain, like you aches and pains, and feeling like I was actually sick. My faith was rocked, started questioning the meaning of life. My mindset was a hot mess. And I had realized I'd come to a point where denial was no longer an option. I could not continue to be going at the pace that I was at. But there came a turning point too, where I had to decide I could either lie in a lump and feel sorry for myself, blame others on my circumstances, or I could do something to change. I had to decide to change my thoughts, my emotions, my actions, and my approach to life, because clearly what I was doing was not working. I had to be committed enough to show up for myself and every day, no matter how I felt. And I spent time daily rewiring my thoughts, my words, my actions, and really dove into learning how the brain works, what exactly this all means. I pressed into addressing the hard stuff, the stuff from my past, the forgiveness towards myself and others, and all those roots of perhaps rejection and perfection that were showing up in my behavior. And I went through an inner healing process to get rid of the junk in my trunk, to lighten the load. And I invested heavily in coaching and actually fell in love with the whole concept of coaching and helping others, that I decided to become a coach myself. And this whole story, if you're interested in learning more, you can read my book, Warrior to Warrior, A Mother's Journey from Fear to Faith. And where that brings me out today is that I want to encourage you that no matter where you are, that you can turn your pain and frustrations and trials into powerful tools. And subsequent to that experience, I actually have turned around and written several other books, two of which have done very well, is the Warrior to Warrior on the left, you can see here, as well as a mindset makeover. These are in the women's Christian living section, and personal growth and Christianity, and being able to be brave enough to show up and share my story. I tell you, it was kind of scary. But now that I have, I'm so honored to be able to share that journey to help other women who were like me in that situation really get unstuck and move forward and find the momentum that they need. Because here's the good news. You have a choice today to let your circumstances rule you, or be intentional with your choices. So let's dive into the content. So that is where I'm from. So as you can understand, that having gone through burnout and realized there is a better way, I decided, as the strategist and fixer that I am, there has to be a formula to this, right? And the way that I put this together is a way that I hope that you can learn and really gain knowledge and tools. And, even if it's a golden nugget you walk away with today, I hope that it will help you in your journey in life and business. So the first tip I'd like to share with you is how to recognize the signs of burnout. Does it feel like you're stuck in the weeds and perhaps lacking joy in your life? Even the word joy, like what does that bring up for you? Like, what thoughts come to mind, right? Well, let me share with you some layers of burnout that you maybe don't recognize, or maybe some you do. Physical, perhaps stress triggers, body symptoms, migraines, anxiety, sleep disorders. Maybe they're emotional, unhealthy coping mechanisms, overeating, bad habits. Social or relational, perhaps you're having family conflict. Maybe there's some unforgiveness towards somebody, or you have impatience with others. Maybe it's societal. Maybe there's a strained professional relationship. Maybe you're experiencing leadership loneliness in the demands of the job. Spiritual, maybe you feel out of alignment with your core values, a lack of purpose, confused about direction, and maybe have some internal conflict. All of these are layers of what compounds and eventually becomes a heavy weight that will eventually bring you down if you don't deal with them. So let me know, is this you? Can you recognize yourself working too late, maybe crying in a cave where you feel like with the frustration is you don't know what else to do with yourself? Perhaps you're an overthinker, or you like to overanalyze things. Maybe you're just plain old exhausted, or all of the above. But here's the real reality is if you keep pushing yourself, your body is not a machine. Your body will revolt. You will experience burnout and breakdown. Just like a car, if you don't take your car in for a service and take care of it, it will eventually break down. Perhaps you're suffering from chronic illness, repeated infections, constant inflammation, or the stress hormones are just become toxic to your mind, to your body, and your whole being. Well, if you can recognize any of that, let me explain to you that perhaps these are maybe the behaviors you might be seeing, and these are categorized within what we call 4 trauma responses. So maybe you recognize some behavior tactics. Maybe you're in a fight mode. Perhaps you're controlling, the bully, the narcissist, anger outbursts, impulsive. Maybe in the flight mode, feeling like you're a workaholic, overthinking, and maybe you're suffering from anxiety, panic, difficulty sitting still, over analytical. Or the freeze, which is when you get stuck, you feel depressed, difficulty making decisions, feeling stuck, procrastinating, brain fog. Or perhaps you're in fawn, which is people pleasing, lack of identity, no boundaries, overwhelmed, codependent, conflict avoidant. And oftentimes these are what we call the fruit that we see on the outside of the way that we're behaving, because there are reasons and triggers underlying that keep causing these things to appear. So this is a great way of saying, okay, I understand or recognize these situations. Awareness is key, and awareness is power, because once you have the awareness, we can then apply the strategies to help you move past this. And here's the truth about stress is that some stress factors, we do require some stress in life. Like if we didn't have the motivation to get up and work and feed ourselves, we wouldn't, right? But it becomes unhealthy when we allow that to become overwhelming and it reaches toxic levels. And really what that does, it creates an unregulated nervous system in your body, which just creates the stress responses, which then actually physically affect you, like digestion and mental processing. And emotions have a way of echoing in the body through memory and perhaps being triggered. Like if, you're just feeling really sensitive and maybe you haven't somebody says something that really annoys you and it just triggers you, and the next minute you're having a complete meltdown. Well, obviously that's a good sign that there's some unprocessed emotion or stress that you maybe are holding on in your body that you haven't allowed to process and work through. And here's the other truth about it is that there's a really important link between the mind and the gut. We often talk about, we have a feeling, have butterflies in our stomach, or I just have this gut sense of feeling. The gut is the second brain. And the mind-gut connection is what we call the superhighway, is connected by a nervous system called our vagus nerve. Not Las Vegas. We're not talking about partying all night at the casino. What we're talking about is how our body is wired, and by the thoughts and the emotions that we experience directly then connect to our body system. Like if you think about getting nervous, you feel it in your body, or, feeling tense or anxiety is usually we feel like in our chest and our body. And our body is a great way of showing us externally what's happening internally. So the vagus nerve, an unregulated vagus nerve system has things like an abdominal pain and bloating, acid reflux, changes in heart rate, blood pressure, and blood sugar, dizziness or fainting, difficulty swallowing, loss of appetite, feeling full, unexplained weight loss, nausea, vomiting. Sometimes it's not that bad panini you ate. Maybe it's your actual nervous system and your body screaming for help because it's on the verge of burnout and it needs some help. The big culprit today for burnout is dealing with incomplete stress cycles in the body. Now, we all go through a process and cycles need inevitably a start and a finish. But in today's society, we are forever plugged in. We're not like the days of we read a story and the end. There's no end. There's no end button. We're constantly circling from one task, one activity. I mean, if we just look at social media and the digital technology we use, is designed to keep us connected. We're never giving ourselves a break. But times have changed. Our nervous system was designed for back in the day when we were running away from lions, but we are no longer running away from hungry lions. We are no longer need the survival mechanism of stress-induced action, where if you know a lion was coming to chase you, you would have to be running pretty fast to get away. And we no longer apply the off button. Back in the day, if I'm from South Africa, and I know the whole story of the tribal mentality is you go out hunting, it's super scary. You have the lion finding or the animal, you chase them and then you come back and you have a celebration, you have a party and you bring to the end and you give thanks for the animal for, becoming life-giving in the form of food. But there's always an end to the day. There's always an end to that cycle. But we live in a society where we no longer apply the off button. We are no longer completing the stress cycle. We're just looping from one stress cycle to another. And what the stress cycle looks like is we start with perhaps you're in your business and all of a sudden you realize there's an extra task or responsibility that gets put on your shoulders. Then all of a sudden it induces panic. And what does that do? Then really it leads to feelings of feeling overwhelmed and frustration. We feel negative and we have all the body symptoms. Then inevitably what we do, we apply the accelerator pedal, then we work late. We have poor sleeping habits and we slip on the self-care. And then what eventually happens is it creates more problems and we have more tasks to deal with. And the cycle continues over and over. Because the deal is emotions are energy in motion. They are moved through our body. They are meant to have a start and a finish. But without processing your emotions, staying in denial, we stay stuck. That emotion stays stuck in your body and your body has memory. Emotions are like echoes. And they get triggered through memory, or someone says something at the wrong time of the month, and all of a sudden you're like freaking out. We all know one of those are about unprocessed emotions can become toxic and become hot buttons for outbreaks and breakdown. So, what's the best approach to this? Here are 7 ways to help you complete the stress cycle. When you are experiencing that extra overwhelm and all of a sudden you have to work late and you have an extra task, what are the things you can do for your health in order to allow that stress to leave your body, in order for it to process through, for you to come to acceptance and to come to a state of peace? Here are 7 ways. You can either physical activity, which is usually the most effective. Go for a long run, go for a walk, go out in nature, decompress, connect with your crew, speak to a friend, go and verbally process with someone. Like I know my mom and my sister are great for that. If I want to rant, they are great for that. Deep breathing, actual oxygen in your body. Like if you're on the highway and all of a sudden you have to hit the brakes, you can feel that adrenaline surge through your body. You can just start breathing deeply, allow the oxygen to filtrate your body. Laughter, go out and watch a comedy, go watch something funny. Affection, a 5-second hug is sometimes more effective than any kind of drug. So go and get your hugs in daily. Creative expression, perhaps whether it's dancing. My favorite is figure skating. That's where I get to just relax and be me and just let it all out there. Whether it's drawing or art, whatever creative output that you have, you can do that. And crying. Mama always said, have a good cry and sleep on it before you actually make a decision, right? So if you're feeling emotional, put on that sad music, allow yourself to cry, move through that. So if you think about it, I'm a parent of 3 kids. And if, my kids fell and hurt and scraped their knee, the first thing they'd do, they'd come running to mommy for a hug. We would give them a hug. We'd let them cry it out. And they're like, okay, I feel good. And off they go again. But we've stopped doing that as adults. We've stopped being kind to ourselves. We've stopped allowing ourselves to cry and say, you know what? It's okay. I need to process this. whether it's hitting the treadmill and getting, angry on the road with your running shoes. There has to be this outlet. That's the only way your body will be able to function through the stress cycle. Because the truth is, denying and avoiding processing your thoughts and emotion is no longer an option. So just think about it. What do you need to deal with today? From the things I've talked about so far, is there anything that pops up? Make sure to make a note of that in your notebook. And just think, if this is no longer an option and I cannot continue where I'm down the path I am, what are the things that I need to deal with? Because awareness is key. So section 2 we're going to go over is some mindset shifts to help you move from surviving to thriving. Here is something I love to talk about, is the human giver syndrome. Women especially suffer from the good girl, or what we call the human giver syndrome. Now, I'm sure we've all felt this way, where you're always expected to always be giving to others, especially as moms. When you're a mother, you don't get a day off. It's a 24/7 job. Givers are not supposed to need anything. Apparently, we're meant to be superheroes. Givers are punished when we're asked for our own needs to be met. We're either called selfish or self-absorbed, but everybody else is allowed to be that way. So here's the thing. Are you a human doing or a human being? The last time I checked, we're human beings who have needs and wants and desires. But if we're not meeting our own needs, somehow something has got to give. Because here's the truth. Busy isn't a badge. Self-preservation is not selfish. Like I've said before, we need to put our oxygen mask on first. If you've ever been on a plane, they say, apply the oxygen mask to yourself before helping others. Because if you run out of oxygen, you're going to pass out and you help nobody. We need to stop glorifying exhaustion as a badge of honor. It's actually not something to be proud of. And Dr. Caroline Leaf, one of my favorites, she's also South African, by the way. She's also a neuroscientist. She has a quote, which I love. It says, it takes a lot of bravery to say yes to rest in a culture that tells you exhaustion is a status symbol. So if we can come to peace about the fact is that you're not winning any awards, you're not getting any badges, no one actually cares how hard and how far you go and how you work at your own expense. So if you're not going to stand up for yourself, who else is? So we really need to be able to be brave and to advocate for ourselves and say, you know what? It's time I put my own oxygen mask on. So let's go through some triggers. Let's see if you can help recognize it. How we recognize the stress triggers is the ones that, put you in that fight or flight mode that immediately induce a stress feeling in your body. Here's the thing is not all stress can be avoided. And we know we can't escape and live in Mexico forever. We do know we have to deal with life, but how we deal with it is the key. What we can do is allow ourselves to go through the process. Just coming to peace about the fact is that there will be stress, but we don't need to let the stress derail us. We can use tools and techniques to apply ourselves to the strategy we use in order to work through it. So we can then allow stress to pass through us versus holding it in our body and causing illness and burnout. And the concept of balance itself is always misunderstood because if we think about it, life is 50-50. You're always in motion balancing things. It's never 100% even. The idea is, maybe you have to work a little longer today in order to have more time to go on vacation. So, the scales are tipping, but you get to decide how far the scales will tip because life is a trade-off. What are you willing to give up today for later? If you're willing to give up time off and self-care now because you want to build your business quicker and faster than you would hope, it comes with a trade-off. You're going to be giving up a lot of time for yourself. But what does that result in? I've often seen in working with many entrepreneurs and, 6 and 7 figure business owners, those who end up sacrificing their health and wellness and their relationships end up suffering later in life because their trade-off was they would rather work hard now with the idea that they could enjoy life later. But if they didn't have their health, what is the point, right? Because stress is not bad. Stress is not bad in itself, but being stuck in stress is the harmful part. Because stress is not actually the problem, but it's the strategy with how we deal with it that becomes a problem. And we cannot escape the stresses, but we can control how we respond and how we process it. So here's a question for you. What are you willing to prioritize and trade to achieve balance in your life? It's like Mama always said, something's got to give. What are you willing to give up now for later? Are you willing to give up your health for now for an achievement or a monetary goal or whatever it is? Or are you willing to prioritize your health for longevity? This is all up to you. You have a choice to decide what your priorities and your values are. So section number 3 is a concept I love to teach about. And it almost sounds counterintuitive, but bear with me. I have some reasoning to this. How to slow down to speed up. I love to think about this in terms of life is a journey. I know it's totally cliche. Life is a journey. We should enjoy the ride, right? And it's designed to be that way. We're not supposed to be at the end in the beginning. We're meant to enjoy the process, right? But sometimes life can feel like we're in a high-speed chase, chasing our goals, chasing our ideas, chasing everyone else and the weather and who, the theys of the world, trying to get there quicker. But speeding down the highway at breakneck speed has its consequences. First of all, you don't get to see what you're traveling past. If you've ever gone on the highway, you can't actually read the signs and see the scenery on the side of the road if you're going so fast. And unfortunately, if you exceed the speed limit, we all know there are a few options. You either end up with a speeding ticket. If you push too far, you can either get stuck on the side of the road or worse, crash and burn. Now, I don't know about you, but waiting until you break down and end up where it costs you your time, health, peace, and money, in my personal opinion, is actually not worth it. And the consequences of crashing and burning is we need to ask ourselves these questions. Why do you have the deeply ingrained belief that you have to be on all the time? Just think about this for a minute. We just get into go mode. We're so used to just jumping in the car, going at full speed, thinking that's how we need to live life. But have you ever thought about why you think like that or why your approach is to push that hard? Because taking your foot off the gas pedal does not mean you failed. Adjusting your speed so you arrive at your desired destination is more important than how fast you get there. You're still going to get there, but is it worth the consequences of pushing yourself too far? Here's the other option is you can enjoy the scenery. You're still going to get there, but life is a journey, so we may as well enjoy the ride. No one is going to show up and save you. This is something you have to do for yourself. You are in the driver's seat of your vehicle. You get to decide how fast and where you go. And if you're willing to embrace the journey of self-discovery, you eventually get to maturity and advancement and realize what's worth the effort so you don't sacrifice your mental and physical health. But here's the thing. You need to stop giving away your personal power. This is entirely up to you. You have the power to choose where and how your life goes. So welcome to the gift of clarity. If I had to hand you a pair of 20/20 vision glasses, before you have them, you still get to see the world, right? And you think, well, this is how everyone else sees. But when someone hands you clarity and you're able to see things in sharp focus, it's amazing how much detail comes alive. You get to see the detail in the scenery. You get to see the nuances in life because I don't know about you, but I truly believe God's given us life as a gift. That's why it's called the present, right? You're meant to enjoy it like a gift. So instead of rushing through it, expecting to get to the next thing, life is a mirage. We may as well enjoy where we're at and make the choices to have that quality. And as I mentioned before, awareness is key. When you can recognize the warning signs, you can then deal with the stressful thoughts and emotions. You're then able to process and work through the stress cycle. You can then reset and rest. You can adjust your speed by stretching the timeline. You then can accept your abilities and limitations. You can decide on a plan of action, and then you can action the plan. What are you aware of now that you need to process and deal with? If anything's come to mind, these are definitely ways of pushing the hot buttons on perhaps the areas of denial or the things that you didn't want to deal with, or maybe something comes to mind that you didn't think of until now. But all of these ideas in these moments are not a criticism of self. This is about awareness and coming to realization, because once we have a plan, we can action the plan. So how I can help you, if what I've shared with you today has resonated with you and you feel like this is something you need to work on. Let me first of all assure you that it's completely normal to feel apprehensive to change. It's normal to feel like your brain and your heart are at war. It's normal to think it will work for others, but not for me. But let me tell you, here's the truth. Don't let your brain hijack your thoughts because of the way that you've thought in the past. The good news is that you can rewire your mind. You can rewire the brain. The science has shown that. And I have a way and a methodology that will actually train you to do just that. Because when your brain is freaking out and thinking, oh, I can't do that, and hitting the brakes on your potential, it's just stopping you from advancing. And if you know that that's your brain's immediate reaction, I like to think of it like a 2-year-old having a hissy fit. She doesn't like the lollipop being taken away in her comfort zone, and all of a sudden she's having a freak out, and all the parents out there will know. You just have to put up with the screaming and the crying, and eventually she'll calm down. But I prefer to be the parent in my brain and say, it's all right. Nothing's gone wrong. It's okay to pivot and adjust and change. I'm not a failure. I'm adjusting and making decisions that will better serve me in the future. Because anything worth doing is going to feel uncomfortable at first, but this means you're ready for change. So my invitation for you today is, if you feel like you're ready to step in more for your life and business, and you're ready to ditch the overwhelm, take back your life, I invite you to join me in my coaching container. I have a 12-step strategy and process that I've worked with many entrepreneurs and especially women manage their motherhood, their money, and their mind. Eliminate the burnout and bring back balance. I invite you to connect with me at mimikacooney.com/coaching. We'll give you more info. But in a nutshell, my methodology is I help female Christian entrepreneurs strengthen their resiliency and mind management to better navigate business challenges using neuroscience and a faith-based approach. And I have my signature Unstick Your Mind program does exactly that. And I work with clients in different capacities. But if that's something that resonates with you, I encourage you to act today, because it's your turn to decide where and how your next steps go. So book a free call. I have opportunities in my calendar. I would love to connect with you. We can discuss if and how I could help you on your journey, your mindset journey, and getting you positioned with the correct tools so that you can enjoy the journey and become successful in your life and business.